Hi, I'm Shamel and I'm here with a new video for Scrapbook Remix. And in this prompt we're looking specifically at layers. There's been lots of talk about layers and this is the final video that really focuses just on that topic. And the featured collection today was the Sassafras Sweetly Smitten collection. So I have the first three layouts here for you that you've seen in the prompt. Just mention a few things about each one, and then I'm going to show you the fourth layout from start to finish. So in this particular case, I've started with the sassafras paper as the background, but these layers are from different brands, and in this case, one that's from the same brand but a different collection. Much different tone to this, so same sort of idea of vintage flowers as the Sweetly Smitten, but this was from a collection called Cherry Delicious, which had a lot of reds, blues, and purples, so really bold colors, where Sweetly Smitten is quite pale and soft. So the layers of pattern paper here come from Studio Calico, Crepe Paper, and KI Memories, and then some Amy Tangerine American Crafts yellow chevron here. And the thing I wanted you to have a look at here is the difference that happens when you pile up layers of bold colors or darker colors on a really pale background. And it's something that you can use to your advantage, or you can spot that it's not your style and step away from it. It just depends on the look that you like in the end. So in this case, I've started with a really pale, washed out background and then used really bold, dark shades of paper. So there's navy blue, there's burgundy, there's olive green, and red. So really a big contrast between the background and those photo mats. The patterns themselves are all repeating patterns, so one with just a very sparse little square print, one standard polka dot. This one, which is kind of a new trend at the moment, which looks a bit like a pie chart, and there's all different sorts of iterations of pie charts, but really it's just a take on a circle and a starburst, and an all-over floral print. So all things that repeat over the page, and there's one that has a bigger pattern where a polka dot, the repeat is very small. It's just this tiny little bit that repeats over and over again. And this flower you can see is the same flower just pasted over and over and over again and moved ever so slightly. But it's this green pattern that has the biggest difference because the pieces are separate. There are large circles and small circles and medium-sized circles, and they're all spread out rather than having a really regimented pattern that you can follow like a polka dot. So of those layers, the one that gets the most space so that you can see most of that pattern is that green pattern, because that's the one that doesn't repeat. You need more of that on show in order to understand the pattern. So pale background, dark colors for layers will really bring your eye into the middle of the page. So if you only want to work with one photo, if you want to bring the attention to something that could otherwise be lost, this sort of high contrast color placement can really help. And then I added lots of kind of vintage styled embellishments because it was an old photo. Not vintage as in a million years ago, but these are certainly the sorts of motifs that I remember from my childhood, and this particular floral always reminds me of sheets from that day and age, and at that point they would have already been nice and worn, but the sheets that you had in the summer were always these florals on cotton. And so I've used a lot of that paper line with photos from my childhood because of that memory, even though I haven't ever really sat down in the journaling and written, I remember the sheets look like this, and I don't have any photos where you can see the sheets that I know of. But yeah, those few little things to keep in mind, and that's this first one. One last little thing that has nothing to do with the layering, but if you use a square design like this where you end up with a wide frame, if your story that you want to tell is actually a lot of little bits rather than one nice long story, this sort of design works really well. So I have different elements of journaling because I don't remember the specifics of this day, but looking at the photo there are different things that I can pick out from it and I want to record. So I've just done them separately as all little pieces in each corner around the edge where there's space on the frame. So something to keep in mind if you look at a photo and think, oh, which thing am I going to go with, because there's lots of random memories. You can put them all together, and this is a design that will work well with that. The second page in the prompt is this one, which again uses a Sweetly Smitten paper for the background, and then has this concentrated area of layers that includes some KI memories, some simple stories, some Echo Park, making memories, and then this yellow floral, which is repeated down here. That's again a sassafras, but from a different collection, a much older collection than Sweetly Smitten. Some Sweetly Smitten stickers, but mixed with Amy Tangerine washi tape, some crochet lace tape, and little fabric yo-yos, Studio Calico wood veneer feathers, Prima plastic flowers or resin flowers, some little pearls, and a bit of glimmer mist in both a little metallic sandy brown color and then some non-metallic orange. That's Mr. Huey's. So this particular design, and this is a design you'll see used over and over again by scrapbookers who really like this look, and then they just reinvent this idea of this small concentrated group of layers. So if this is something that you really like and you spot this as your style, then see what different elements you can move around, have a play with how it can work with a portrait photo, with a 4x6 photo, with small photos, with an Instax photo, anything like that. And you'll notice that there are people who can take this sort of area and just keep moving things around, different elements, and in a sense, it's almost as if the sketch for each page is the same, but every page looks unique. So something to try if that looks like a good match for your style. And then something else to notice, that when you have a really small piece of a pattern left showing, that's a great one to then repeat somewhere else in a bigger piece. So in this grouping, you see the wood grain from the simple stories more, and you don't see much of the yellow floral. If you come down to the bottom of the page, you see lots of the yellow floral and just a little bit of the wood grain. So it's just the idea of taking that combination and turning it on its head. You can also use this sort of one border with a little grouping at the top instead of the bottom of the page. I added it at the bottom because then it gave me a good amount of space to have my journaling that would connect the small concentrated area here with the embellishment at the bottom of the page. Pattern-wise for layers, I'm looking in this case at mixing one really large floral with two really simple universal patterns. So this is just a dotted line, and this one is a wood grain. So those are both patterns that you don't need to see very much of to understand. The dotted line, I'm really looking more at the color to give a soft color that picks up on the color in this journaling box. And the wood grain is just a really nice neutral that you can use on all sorts of things, indoor, outdoor. And wood is just one of those natural tones that you can use, so I use it a lot in paper form too. The third page is this one, which is much bolder use of floral, Sweetly Smitten in the background, and in this aqua polka dot and that little border strip across the middle, but mixed with some Echo Park Everyday Eclectic, some Carta Bella, and some of an older Echo Park collection that had these two cross-hatched pinks, so the dark pink on one side and light pink on the other. And then lots of sassafras stickers. So if you do have sassafras supplies, the stickers all come in sizes that you can repeat and layer on top of each other. So in this case, this little star-shaped piece is just the same. It's one sticker cut in two and used in two different places. But the heart, the star, and this big piece are all from that same sticker sheet with the green. With the embellishment here, I've added little things that I could then repeat in multiple places. So the stickers are repeated in 3 spots, so they form a little triangle around the photo. There are also 3 different things that are stamped that form a triangle around the title and the journaling. And then the little gems are spread all over the page to just kind of bring the floral up to the foreground rather than it feeling like it's in the distance. This design can work in a few different ways, because you can make this a more orderly stacked paper design if you like. You can take all these different pieces and line them up really evenly, so that instead of having all these just slight angles, that you had everything really, really square. Well, what I suggest is that you try cutting all the pieces and arranging it without adhering things in both ways and see what you think. It comes down to your personal style, and the idea of really small angles, don't overdo them, just really, really small angles, will give your page a little bit more of a natural, less constructed look. It looks more like it came very effortlessly. If you prefer everything to be really even and square and give you that same even 1/4 inch around on all sides, that will be a different look and it will be more static. It looks more formal. So it's just a case of knowing which one is the better look for you and your picture in the story that you want to tell at that time. But if you stack them all up without any adhesive, you can get an idea for what it would look like. If you do them all evenly and set them square, then just kind of mess the stack up a little bit and you'll see how it will naturally fall and see which look you prefer. Okay, so with those 3 done, I'm going to take you through the 4th page from the prompt from start to finish, and I have my Sweetly Smitten supplies and the other papers that I'm putting in the mix. So I have, let's start with the paper. This Sweetly Smitten stitched notebook paper as my background, and all that aging with the walnut ink is already there in the original paper. The other side was this kind of pink and purple subtle solid. And I'm going to be using 2 4x6 portrait photos with this, and then the different things I've pulled out to go in the mix. I've pulled out a pink because even though it's not really pink in real life, in the photo, the brickwork of the castle picks up a real pink shade. So picked up a pink that's from Cardabella Beautiful Moments, and a typed text pattern paper from Echo Park, which was the Yours Truly collection. And the reason I wanted to use this one is because these are from the Harry Potter studio tour, and wherever I can through that album I'm trying to use things that look like book text, even though it's not the words from Harry Potter, just to kind of give it that little bit of a literary nod. This border sheet, which has a variety of colors, including some pink, but also blues and greens and some neutrals, that's from For the Record 2 by Echo Park. It has just an orange pattern on the other side, which is probably a bit too bold for this. And a sassafras piece from a later collection called Sunshine Broadcast, which has that same idea of a vintage floral, but the colors here are a lot bolder than what was used in Sweetly Smitten. It'll definitely be this side I'm using. This one is a gorgeous paper, but not really the same sort of paper that I'm looking at in this layout at all. So I'll be using the floral here. And then I have some more of that polka dot, which has hearts on the back from Sweetly Smitten, and a few different embellishments. One little Echo Park journaling card, some stickers from Sweetly Smitten in both the big sheet and the small one. I have one of the foldy flowers that I've pulled out. I know that I use them a lot, and it may not be the right sort of embellishment for this page, but it is this collection, and I like how it picks up on all those vintage florals again, so I've pulled one out just in case it is the right thing. And then some Echo Park, just basic stickers, a journaling box, an arrow, and a ticket stub, a My Mind's Eye chipboard piece that says Such a Lovely Day, and a little badge that says Today. So I'll probably add some more things into this. I haven't pulled lettering yet. I'll add gems and things like that in the finishing touches as usual. But this is where I'm starting, and I'll take you through the page. To get started, I had chosen the pink and the blue pattern papers due to the fact that the design, even though this is quite a neutral pattern paper, has the blue and the pink stitching in the background. So I have both pink and blue layers. The choice is then which one goes on top, which one goes nearest the photos. And in this case, I really want to choose the paper that goes best with the photos to be the one that's closest there. So I'm going to mat the pictures on the pink pattern paper, and then use the darker blue and yellow floral behind this layer of pink. And this means that I'll have something that's a bit more plain around the photos. This paper not only matches the photo in color, but also in texture. So I'm looking at different elements of the pattern when deciding what to go into the mix. And then this pattern is such a big contrast from this. So this is something that's completely different in color, it's completely different in tone and texture, and it bridges the gap between the blues and pinks of this background and what I've put next to the photos. So instead of putting my photos straight onto this and having something very jarring next to the images, the pink gives it a bit of a softer border, and I can cut 2 boxes here. A larger box of the floral because that's a bigger pattern, so I want to have more of the pattern showing so that you can tell what it is, and then just a small mat of the pink. This text pattern paper is something I'm going to use in a strip layered across that larger box, and I've added brown ink to the edges, but it's still very different than the background, and I'd rather have the notebook paper and the text print feel like they match a little more. So I'm just going to replicate that look of the staining that's on the background paper, and you can do that with walnut ink, which comes in crystals, and then you can mix it up and get the concentration that you want. So the less water you use, the stronger the color saturation. Or you can just use glimmer mist as it comes in the bottle, and this way it will also have a bit of shine. I just dip the paintbrush in and then paint it onto the edges. And I tend to do one coat around with nice straight lines, and then I'll come back and pick the paper up and just add drops here and there, and that will give it a more natural spilt look. So now I pick this up and I just come back in and paint little places where the mist will pool, so it will get darker in certain spots. Now the more you add, the more mist or paint or anything like that you add to a pattern paper, the more it will warp. So it's just a personal case as to how much that actually bothers you. What I find is that once I've let it dry and I adhere it with plenty of adhesive on the back, and I would use a little bit more adhesive on something that's not perfectly flat. So I might use double-sided tape if a paper is really thick and it's warped, because then it's harder to stick down. But normally I would just use my same adhesive, but I would put a little bit more on than normal. And then I kind of like the texture that it gets when it's been warped like that, especially on the small pieces. If you hate that idea, that's not the end of the world. You can still get this color and get rid of the warp. You can actually iron it, just put a cloth over the top and use your normal iron over the top to straighten the paper out, or you can press it overnight. So sometimes if I know I'm going to work on a project that has lots of pieces like this, I might cut them all and do all the edges, do all the painting, let them dry, and then for a couple of days just put them under a big stack of heavy books, and they will flatten out. So I'll just let this dry, and I'm going to use it with the little bit of warping, but I do have more warp in these 2 areas where I've added more mist. I think it's just quite a nice texture, and with the way that I layer my pages, I know that most of it will get covered up anyway, so it's not a huge deal. But that makes it a better match to the kind of background here. Here's basically where I get to a starting point phase here. So I have a large box behind, I have the 2 photos matted on the pink paper, and then I just have 3 pieces in between. And one is that text print with the ink around the edges, one blue polka dot, and then a journaling card here. And I actually had a floral down the side, but a floral that was a very different style than the pattern paper that I had already used. So I opted to just keep the pink and the box from the journaling box and cover up the floral, because it just wasn't a great mix. So I have now lots of room for a title, perhaps some embellishment up here to balance the fact that this is a very bottom heavy layout. And the patterns that I'm using everything here is really small with the exception of that large floral. So that's the reason that that one is in a large piece, and everything else can be cut quite small and layered quite closely together, and you'll still be able to tell what it is. So all that inking that I did, you can only see this little tiny bit. Polka dots really easy to figure out what they are because the repeat is really small, and this journaling card has a tone-on-tone polka dot as well. So nice and easy patterns to see. If I had reversed that and made the floral the really narrow strip, and that was the only place where it was shown on the layout, it could be quite difficult to see what it was. Now, I had pulled out this pattern paper to include as one of those strips, and this is why I didn't use it. When I realized if you were to imagine any of these in the space where that blue polka dot strip is, all of these patterns take up a bit more room, with the exception of this floral, which repeats quite in a quite small way, but it's not really a good match for my page. Now I can start to build some embellishment and some background layers for my title, and it's a good point to bring out the different embellishments that I had pulled out to see where things like that will fit. And I want to start with the larger pieces because it just works a little bit better to be able to figure out the spacing for the largest items that I might want to include. So I have some quite large stickers on this sheet, and of these, the one that kind of grabs my attention is this one. It's darker, so it picks up the dark color at the edge, but it has that same motif of stitched lines, so it has a little something in common with the background paper. So I can tuck this behind either one layer or two. In this case, I'll try one. And what I tend to do with pieces like this, where I just have one and it's a quite large element, to cut off what's going to be hidden there anyway, just stick it to the side while I'm working on this embellishment, and then when I come in to do the embellishment on other parts of the page, I can go back to that and include it in another grouping somewhere, just to repeat the color or the pattern or the shape. No sense in wasting it if I can make it balance another bit of embellishment. So add some foam squares under the top of that just to give it a little bit of dimension. And then I have the label shape and ticket shape, and I'm going to mix these all together. Same thing with this one. This is going to be tucked underneath the pink paper, so just save the edge there for a little bit later. And then here is another chintz where I can decide, do I want it really straight or do I want it on an angle? So I'm going to put this on just ever so slight an angle. And this picking up the paper shows you why I tend to add my adhesive in the middle, so it's about an inch in on all sides, so that I can still tuck things underneath without having to pull that photo completely up off the background paper. And then this one I will leave whole, I think, because I'm not going to repeat this in another grouping. I just want it with this one. Although I will go ahead and cut it in half, but I won't guarantee that I'll use both halves. Let's see how we go. So, same thing. Tuck this under at an angle. And now I have a nice set of layers for my title to go on top, or it could be any other element. But the largest pieces are there intact in the background. And if I do pull out specific pieces to go into the layout, it's nice to go ahead and get them on the page rather than have them sit on the desk and I forget about them. Then I have smaller elements that I want to include as well. And sometimes these need to be finishing touches, and sometimes they can be really easy to just go ahead and put into the composition. So in this one, I knew I wanted to go in this gap underneath the journaling card. So go ahead and add that. And this one I'm thinking will probably go up here, but I might want something else behind, so I'll leave it for the moment and wait to attach that in a bit. I did pull out that vintage flower, the foldy, but I think this is too much in this case because I have quite a lot going on. The only other space I would have to start a new area of embellishment would be something up here to balance what's there. It's not necessarily required, but there is space here should I want to add a little bit more. But I think this is just too much, too many different patterns to bring in, and a very different look from what I had picked for the pieces to go behind the title. So in this case, I will keep the foldies for another time. I do have my smaller sticker sheet, and I'm going to keep that handy while I go through the next few steps, but my next step is to get the title down, so I'm going to look for some letter options and see if I can make the lettering fit nicely in that space. I've added the title and just used some mistable thickers and sprayed them all with a yellow mist, but then came back with that same ink that I used around the edges of the paper to add some brown and some sparkle. Mixed that with some pink letters to match with the pink pattern paper, filled in my writing, and then started to think about how else to embellish the page on its way to being finished. I started with this star sticker from the small sticker sheet, and I also have these leftover pieces, so I'm thinking I will pop these up here to that top edge and just overlap them a little bit to create a little cluster up here at the top. And let's see, maybe I will use the other half of the ticket if I can get it underneath these layers maybe. So I can trim off the extra here and then see what space I'm left with. Just bring a little bit of ink back where I've cut those edges. Now, places like this or this time in the layout is a really good time if you're layering to go back to a sticker sheet like this and look at all the little pieces that don't necessarily catch your eye straight away. With a sheet of stickers like this, I tend to go to the large pieces first, and quite often I'll have pages or pieces like this where even maybe a couple more of the big pieces are left, but I have all these small pieces that I haven't used. Well, they're great to help with layering. So I can bring in smaller pieces, these littler stickers, and bring them into the embellishment, just kind of sprinkling them around. So I can bring a little bit of bright pink up here. Oops. And I can add ink to make that match everything else. So I can just kind of dot them about, and I can mix them in with the other sorts of things that I dot about on a page in the finishing stages, like little pearls. And I had that little badge. Now, originally I thought it was going to go here, but I don't like the scale from the badge to the star and the title. It's just too much going on. But I can move it up here, and then it's a bit more, a bit less drastic, really, and that's what I wanted to go for. So then I can take some pearls and dot them about in these layers too. And see if I have any other small stickers that I want to dot around the page. So here's this one all finished as you see it in the prompt, with the little stickers added in, just cut apart to make sure that all of the colors are represented in each area. So there's pink and blue in all three spots, and then little pearls to finish off. So take these ideas and adapt them to your own style, whether you'd like it a little bit more layered, a little bit more skew-if, or bring it back to more formal or fewer layers or anywhere in between. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon.